Welcome everybody, Brady from BGWX here, back for another breakdown video as promised for tonight, and we're going to be breaking down potential upcoming snow. Right, we just had some snow tonight for mainly central and northern New England and into other places into the Northeast, but we have snow potentially coming Sunday night, Monday, and we're also maybe going to have maybe a system to track around Wednesday, Thursday. Potential storm possibly to track as well down the line. Details still pretty sketchy, but lay the groundwork out for that. And then we are also going to be talking about the upcoming pattern here, which is going to be getting pretty interesting, I believe. Once we hit, that second week of February, I think around there, it's going to really start to get interesting. So we're going to be breaking all that down here. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So as we progress here, we can see this is our storm system. If you can see North America, I'll zoom in just a little bit. This is, looking at the GFS, doesn't matter the model, just the general specifics is, and I can break down, the details of what to look for. It's fine. Models aren't so far off right now. So if we look at this, you can see there's our storm system currently sliding out, produced a lot of rain and some back end snow for some people as well, some good accumulating snow in central New England specifically. But as we slide out here, we'll notice there's cold air out, in front, out behind our system, and we can show you that more clearly here. Surface temperatures. There's 2 meters Celsius. You can see that there's your zero degree line highlighted right there. Take a screenshot for y'all just so you can see. Right, here's our cold air that comes in behind our system here. So cold air in place here across the Northeast. And what we're going to get is another, basically pretty much a clipper system, basically, is so it's not going to be too much of a significant snowfall, but you can see we do get some convection to get, we do get some upper level energy to get out ahead here across the central U.S. And again, we're in a zonal pattern here, so meaning we're going to be working energy, upper level energy this week is going to be flatter. So we're not talking about big wild dips in the jet stream here. We're talking about a flatter storm track. Now, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. Look at that, made the arrow for me perfect. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing. This isn't a suppression pattern necessarily, because look, your polar vortex isn't pressing down on our systems like we were having more towards the end of last week. We're sliding across the northern U.S. here, and you can see if I slide in here, we'll have high pressure out ahead of this system. We can zoom in to the United States here and get an idea, and then we'll see the system trek across and produce maybe some light to moderate snow, a good burst of snow. Sunday night into Monday morning is the time frame kind of here across the U.S. A lot of the same places that we've been dealing with. So you notice in the thumbnail, it's not me necessarily being lazy. It's just I don't have anywhere else to draw. It's the same places that we're looking at to potentially get hit here. I'm telling you, this pattern has, I said earlier, it's a Northeast New England more favorable pattern as it stands for now. And, potentially we can start involving more people as we get towards the middle of the latter part of the month. But for now, especially this week, favorable snow is going to be for the Northeast in New England specifically, right? We're talking about New York City northward is kind of where we're looking at, and that's kind of what we're going to be working with here with this system. It doesn't really model you look at, so maybe no more than really maybe more of a 1 to 3-ish kind of event, maybe some isolated higher totals, but a general idea is something like a 1 to 3, 1 to 4 for Sunday to Monday with this system. But then there's another system we're also going to keep an eye on as well. GFS, you can see it has the system here. The Euro has a little bit different variation, but pretty similar. The details and the specifics are not, but the overall orientation of the setup is rather similar. So models are honing in on that. We're about 5-6 days out from this. Canadian has it as well, you can see. So different versions here, not too far off of a setup that we're having here, different from the Clipper, just a little bit more upper level energy to work with in this system. So what we have here, and I'll just slide back to the GFS here, because this is the one that shows if we were to get a hit, what would happen. And you can see, if we zoom out just a little bit more, this flatter storm track is what we're dealing with here. And if we slide to 500 height, you can notice, you look at that and be like, that's a storm? That's what I'm talking about here. 500 millibar heights can often be deceiving. It can be rather deceiving. You look at that and you're like, well, that's not a pattern for a big snowstorm, is it? Well, when 500 millibar vort tells more of the story. So those 500 millibar height charts, can be a little bit deceiving if you're not sure quite what you're looking at. And we're going to talk about that why in a second here. And because, the snowfall maps and you look at 500 millibar height, you may be confused, be like, how does that show that what it shows on those ensemble, snow maps that you've been posting? And here in this zonal flatter pattern that we're working with here, right? We have this evident Atlantic ridge here in the southwestern Atlantic, hovering over the Gulf of Mexico in the southwest Atlantic. And then we have troughing digging in here into the western U.S. And we're going to see this upper level energy trek across the country here, right? We're looking at 500 millibars. This is upper level vorticity here. And we're going to be looking at this to trek across the country here. And so there's going to be an opportunity here, especially for the northern U.S. specifically, more northern than that. That's kind of where we're going to be looking at, and more specifically, this area, which is our tracking domain here, we look at, and that's kind of the area we're going to be focusing on potentially for a storm. Details, would still say very TBD, but more than a clipper system is potentially possible with this, where you could maybe get some overrunning front end thump snow or go to a mix. There's still some various details still very much need to be figured out, but the Euro AI is a model that has been kind of honing in on this, and I'll show you it's not a p-type map necessarily, but you can see, give a general idea where maybe not a major snowstorm, it doesn't maybe look like in the cars necessarily, not an all-out blockbuster, but potentially a significant event, maybe a moderate snowstorm or a minor snowstorm is possible. And again, this could be or it could be just a significant snow event versus an actual snowstorm. So details still TBD on that, but again, the focus would be, again, a lot of the same areas, maybe a little bit farther south potentially for if there were some front end thump snow. So maybe some of the focus there we'd be looking at would be, again, more so New England, Northeast, but maybe New York City, maybe North Jersey, maybe maybe some parts of eastern, more so northeastern Pennsylvania would be able to get into that. Long Island would maybe would be too tough of a call right now to say. Really anywhere would be, but just a general area of maybe where to focus on, potentially for some sort of snow event down the line here. And then as we progress here, now here's the next part of the pattern I want to talk about. What's the evolution? A lot of people, you're wondering, you're seeing a lot of mixed signals. I have my thoughts, and I'm going to stay very firm on them. I have for through and through with what the models have shown here, and you're kind of seeing models correct a little bit closer happen to my ideas, and we'll show you where I'm at right now. So here's North America, slide back out. Again, you look at this and be like, the storm, really? In that? Yes, possibly. Typically, when you don't see the big blue, over the eastern U.S., you're thinking, oh, that's dry, or is no storm. It's not always the case. 500 height, that's why it can be deceiving, these maps. Not always the way to go. And then as we progress here, here's where it starts to get interesting. Keep an eye maybe on a polar vortex stretch down the line. And what we're going to do here, I can take a screenshot of what we got going on here. And so I said a little while ago, I think February will favor northeast New England, maybe northern mid-Atlantic as well. Kind of, this area northward is kind of where my focus is on, more specifically on most favored. It doesn't mean places farther south couldn't, but most favored, I would say north, kind of north of the Delmarva pretty much is where I would focus on. And what we're going to see here is potential polar vortex split to some sort of stretching event potentially down the line here as we enter February, potentially a week out from now. But we're also going to have a strong Alaskan ridge present over the Pacific, and we're also going to have Atlantic ridging across maybe Atlantic ridging present all across much of the Southwest Atlantic, and maybe even into the North Atlantic, and that would be a very important key factor here in this pattern. And so as we progress here, we see cold air potentially filter in, be cold air be on tap and be filtering into the central, maybe even the western part of the U.S. And what's going to happen here? Remember, this is not some big. This doesn't look like some big, throw it into the western U.S., cut all the way up kind of pattern here. Not quite. Remember you still have pretty strong Alaskan ridge here, and this could potentially even trend stronger. I would keep an eye on that. That's what we've done with a lot of ridges here over the course of this winter so far, and we're gonna see where does this cold air, filter in exactly. That will be key to tell specifically, but we are going to have cold air on tap, and then potentially storm tracks that could be very close for some people. Maybe it could be a battleground zone somewhere, Philly, Jersey, New York City. Hard to say specifically so far out, but we could see potential multiple setups down the line here as we get into February for snow, and then as we start getting into the middle to latter part of January, again, you have that Atlantic ridging present. You have cold air filtering down. You can see, then you start creating that gradient there where that cold air is going to meet that warm air. So we're going to be pulling up moisture up the coast from the Gulf of Mexico and off the Atlantic. And then that's going to allow opportunities potentially to create significant storm events down the line. And, one thing I wanted to point out here, again, using the EPS, doesn't matter. You can look at the Jeffs as well, kind of hinting at, some sort of similar ideas as well. And again, these will kind of change a little bit, but that idea is that cold air pressing down on, on that against our warm air here, and that's going to create some sort of thermal gradient potential for a storm track setup to potentially favor, again, specifically looking at, I think, the Northeast and New England, potentially the northern mid-Atlantic. Can't rule out the mid-Atlantic even as well. Wouldn't even completely rule out the northern regions of the South completely, but the storm tracks, that would maybe be more maybe down the line in February. For now, as we get into the middle part of February, I think there's going to be some opportunities, and specifically down the line here around this February 8th to February 9th to 12th kind of time frame here, I think there could be an opportunity for a significant, maybe multiple, from even going into the 14th or 15th. Significant storms to keep an eye on down the line. And one thing I found really interesting was the snow map mean. I'll show you this. This is not a typical snow map, so you don't need to worry too much. Again, ensemble snow maps are just a key, small key, or I should say piece rather than key, a small piece to the puzzle. They're really not all that important, but they're not a border piece to a puzzle, but they are one piece. You do have to put a lot of pieces together to a puzzle, and they are one thing to look at, when you complete that puzzle. So, and it's one of the more significant means I've seen all winter. I think the actually highest mean I know it's the highest mean I've seen for the Northeast all winter long. So a very impressive ensemble mean here. Again, it's not like a storm's coming tomorrow that's skewing this. That's not the case. There's a little bit left over from this, as you can see, a couple inches, but that's still a crazy mean. I mean, that's a whole, that is a massive, 8 to 16 inch mean across southern New England, like New York City to all of New England and upstate New York, northern PA, right? This crazy mean. And all that's doing is saying that there's a lot of members showing potential storms. There's a lot of there's all these different members, 50 plus members showing all potentials, like at some point, the potential for a storm to hit. And it's just saying that, there's a good chance that at some point there could be a storm down the line. That's kind of all it's saying. It's not guaranteeing anything whatsoever. It's just saying the snowfall mean suggests that there's a decent shot. There's going to be some accumulating snowfall across this area over the course of the next 10 to 15 days. And I'd even say that period could extend on. Again, I think February is going to be a pretty active month for the Northeast and New England. Snow-wise, maybe not the biggest snow threats quite yet next week, but as we move on after that, I think that's where maybe the potential for significant storms could arise, and we'll see kind of how that plays out. I'm sticking to these thoughts. Again, it's a new variation in the pattern here, but I think February overall is going to be a decent month overall for snow potential here for the Northeast and New England. We talked about, how the Mid Atlantic and the South has gotten involved. We've went in depth here about January and how they made out very well in these months, and now I think for more in some of these higher latitudes here in the U.S. we'll have an opportunity to cash in, and a lot of people have done actually pretty well, especially lake effect snow in New York and some of the mountains in New England, higher terrain in New England have actually done decent as well, and some others haven't, but I think it's going to be more widespread here potentially. And, I could be wrong, but, these are my thoughts, and that's what I'm sticking with for now. I appreciate all of you watching, and be on the lookout for some live streams this week. Appreciate you all. Peace.